Alright guys, I did this little project here. I set it up to fail so we can take a look at the cut and see exactly what's going on. As you can see, it looks halfway decent until you get up around here. Now what this is this is the Aztec calendar, or the Marvel Aztec calendar that I can't remember his name. He drew it up and he put it on Thingiverse. You can download the DXF files for it. And he originally designed this to be cut at least 3 times bigger than this. This right here is about 9.5 inches in diameter. If I would have cut it out, it would have been right at 10 inches. But this thing was supposed to be a lot bigger than this. So if you had a machine that could cut something that size, you wouldn't be dealing with this. But since I've just got one of these little 60-40 routers, I thought I would go ahead and throw it on here. For one, to see what it would look like, which, you know, it looks pretty cool. If I would have set this up, it would have turned out. I set this up to fail. First issue I had was the piece of board that I had a nice bow in it. So I clamped it down, and I actually got it fairly straight, or flat. As you can see, feeler gauge doesn't go in, and of course it's a thick feeler gauge, but you can see there's a little bit of a gap right there, so it pulled it down flat. Now you'll notice that my clamps are way back here, and I did that on purpose, because if we look, my 0 point was right in this area for my Z0, and in relation to that point, all this detail here looks really good. And you can see we get a little bit of chip out, but that's going to happen because this is just pine board anyway. But as we get further and further away from this point, you can see the detail just goes to crap. I mean, I was actually surprised this turned out as well as it did. I mean, if we look at the detail here in this mask, you can see that it's all actually in there really, really good. As we get over here, you can see that this V, as opposed to this one, we can see it didn't cut out near as much. And there's supposed to be some more detail in here. If you look here, you can see that there's supposed to be strings in the bow here, or lines right here. It was a little low. So by looking at this, we can see that in relation to this point right here, which is where I zeroed my Z, it is high up here because we are using a V-bit cutter and a vcarve. So the higher the material is, or if the material changes height, will affect the cut because it's using depth to control the lines, or the width between the lines. So here we could see that just by looking at this, that this part of the board is sitting up at an angle. So you can see it start and it just goes uphill. So when the cutter's coming around, it's taking a deeper cut. You can also look at these series of circles. Here they start off really nice, and if you watch this line here and this line here as well, the circles start to get smaller and the line starts to get thinner until it's just about non-existent. So this tells us that more material is getting in the way of the cutter, and not only is it higher, but the cutter is actually going deeper into the material, so it's making the distance between the two cuts smaller, which is the piece that you get left over. You see here there's supposed to be a line that comes around here that it just got taken off. If you come over here and look at the spider web, you can see that we got really nice detail around it, and here it's just chewed. So you can see that it's doing decent over here, and it starts to get high. Now it's almost at the highest point. Then as we come back around, it actually starts to recover pretty decently. You can see that by looking at the width of this line and the circles. It's actually pretty consistent. But now if you look here, you can see that some of these markings, details that are supposed to be in here are not there. So this tells us this is low and this is high. Now what's the big deal with this? I mean, what do we start looking for? I'm going to take a feeler gauge and in between my spoil board and my work, I'm just going to see if I can stick a feeler gauge in there. I've got it going up at an angle so I can get right where they meet. Good contact, good contact. Oh, there it starts to go in. And now it's just free loose. So this tells me, and when I get about that far in, I'm starting to make contact with the spoil board again. So that tells me that this corner here is bowing up like that. Now if I take the feeler gauge over here, contact, oh, it's right there where it started in the detail loss. I'm able to stick the feeler gauge in, and I just lost it. So from here over is bowing up and nothing, so none of this is touching. And if I push on it, I can actually flex it. So what I should have done, which like I said, I set this up, I engineered it to fail. So I should have taken these clamps and put them right here as close as to possible to get it to pull both of these sides down. And we can just, like I said, we can just tell that by just reading what we have. We can see that this starts to get chewed up, so this is higher. If this was pulled down, it wouldn't have taken such a big cut, and it probably would have turned out fine. Special thanks to the guy, I can't remember his name, who created this file. It's really, really cool file. Special thanks to him, and I just hope somebody out there can get something from this video to actually be able to look and say, okay, all the information we need is right here as to why this part didn't turn out. So you just start studying the part. Damn ice cream, man. It's freaking winter.